Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Sheila Hession, Executive Director of Sales at the MGM National Harbor, and I'm Chair of the HSMAI DC Advisory Board. We're in week 8 of the pandemic, and since we're not able to meet in person, we're offering a series of webinars to stay connected virtually. Today's topic is staying visible, staying relevant, and staying valuable when everything is shut down. And our speakers are Holly Zoba and John Britch, who will teach us best practices on using LinkedIn successfully. But before we get started, let me tell you a bit about our speakers. Holly Zoba is the founder of Scout Simply, which helps hotels find more revenue through better sales and marketing strategies and technologies. In 2019, Holly launched a unique sales training program called Influencer Sales, which was built around the changing behaviors of hotel business-to-business buyers. The program integrates new sales strategies along with introducing digital applications in order to engage prospects earlier and to close more sales. Holly is a current member and immediate past chair of the HSMAI Marketing Advisory Board, and during her time on the board, she was the founding co-author of the CHDM Exam and Study Guide and the certification for hotel digital marketers, which has led to the most recent training program, Hotel Digital Marketing Essentials. Holly's a frequent speaker at industry conferences and author of multiple articles and noted research in the hospitality media field. John Britch is a leader of Searchwide Global's hotel and resort practice, placing mid-level management to senior-level leadership all over the country, including Canada, in sales, marketing, revenue, and operations. Prior to joining Searchwide Global, John was the director of sales with the Cincinnati CVB for almost 7 years, leading a diverse team to bring in conventions to the city and to drive economic impact. Prior to moving to Cincinnati, he served 12 years in Chicago, both in sales leadership positions for both Hyatt Hotels and Resorts and Starwood Hotels and Resorts. And lastly, John is passionately involved with HSMAI at the chapter level, where he's an advisory board member in Ohio and sits on the sales advisory board at the national level. Thank you, Holly and John, for joining us today. We're excited to hear your presentation. And for those listening in, if you have any questions, please just enter them into the question box and we will be sure to address them. And also please note that you'll receive a link to today's recording. I'm turning it over to Holly and John. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think we are very excited to be here. And now that you've heard about us, we want to find out a little bit about you. If you've never seen this tool before, it's called Mentimeter, and it's a fantastic polling tool. So I have been doing these presentations for a little bit and found this to be a really good getting to know you question, and I'll tell you about your personality after you answer the question. If you haven't used this before, you just take your phone or go to any browser and type in menti.com. And it's going to ask you for a code number. When you do that, the code is 113083. And we just want to know where you think Carole Baskin's first husband is. In the belly of a tiger, living a good life without Carole Baskin, or who is Carole Baskin? This speaks volumes about you. Uh-oh, John, we're in trouble again.
Yeah, so interesting.
It really is.
Just like the other day. Are you voting, Holly?
I am not. Are you?
Okay. Yeah, I voted. I'm an active participant here.
I am curious, John, what you think.
Well,
I'm guessing.
Go ahead.
I'm guessing you're saying number one, that living a good life without.
Wrong. I put in the belly of a tiger.
Oh, geez. All right. So what this often tells me about our audiences is the people that say in the belly of a tiger, you all are a bunch of realists, which I'm happy to have you here. What worried me is nobody initially had said living a good life, and those are our optimists. I so hope you're right. And then who is Carole Baskin tells me that some of you actually lead real lives, and so you're not binge watching The Tiger King on Netflix, which is where Carole Baskins rose to fame. So I appreciate that. It's good that we have a couple of optimists on the show here. We have a more serious question to ask you as we get to know you a little bit more. What is your SSI score? Your social selling index, if you don't know what this is, it's a little bit like your star report for LinkedIn. It tells you where you rank in the world of LinkedIn. And so to go and find it, again, go to a browser. You're going to go to linkedin.com/sales/SSI. I'm wondering if I can put this in the chat box. And then once you find out what it is, or if you already know it, then we're going to ask you to go back to Menti, and the question should be there because it's the same code, 113083. This is a complicated, it's a two-part question. And go ahead and key in your social selling index score. Oh, we have some good folks on here. Don't be alarmed, it's anonymous. So if your score is like, I'm saying 50% of the hospitality industry and below 40, you're not alone. Don't be embarrassed. And also no one will know that it's yours. We just asked this to get a sense of where people are in the world of LinkedIn and their profile. There we have 25, 30. And really, I teach a class around this, and I would say 50 to 60% of salespeople generally start around the 25 to 30 area. Looks like we have a pretty wide range here, John.
Yeah, Holly, there's somebody close to you at 79. I know you didn't type yours in, but 80 is the top one so far, which is yours.
I've not really seen many over 80, and mine fluctuates between 78 and 80. This looks pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate your input. This gives us a great sense of, not a ton of binge watchers. We have some people who have real lives here, and they have the time to get their SSI scores up. So, John, I'm going to kick it over to you to start us out today.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you everybody for spending some time with Holly and I today. There's been a ton of things that have impacted us, since March, and we're all affected by it. Holly's business has been impacted by the virus. Search by Globals has, and I'm coming to you from a place today that I've been furloughed, and I know a lot of people on this call have been furloughed, have been laid off, pay cuts, hours cut. We've all been impacted in some way. So this presentation that we're going to share with you today is all things that you could be doing during this time. It's all positive. This is not doom and gloom. We're not going to mention the virus so many times throughout this presentation. It's just stuff that, our goal here today is to have you take one or two things from this presentation and implement it today, and make some changes. But we're going to talk about a tale of two roles, one from a job seeker and one from a client seeker. And a lot of us continue to do both during this time. We're going to talk about how to stand out on LinkedIn and how to really represent yourself in a way where clients and potential job seekers will reach out to you. Communicating through LinkedIn, very important with sharing posts, and then also, how you reach out to somebody. And then at the end of our presentation, we're going to talk about some added values, being productive, things that you could do now, so you come out of this a better version of what you were before this whole pandemic had started. So today, let's get started. If you're looking for a job, there's a ton of competition out there. Unfortunately, boy, in January we were talking about the low percentage of unemployment out there, and now it's at an all-time high. There's a lot of opportunities within hospitality, as we know, but there's also a lot of uncertainty. As certain states start to open up, there are businesses and hospitality businesses that open up, but we're just not sure of what that looks like and what the hiring and the need will look like. Holly?
And really the same is true on the flip side. If you are still working and you are looking for clients, there's still a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of confusion and stress out there currently. Our customers, just like us, are going through a lot of change, and they're trying to navigate what the new normal is going to look like as well. So there's really a lot of uncertainty. And so, our big goal here is to help you figure out how to separate yourself and your very unique differentiators from the rest of the crowd.
Yeah, these next two slides, everybody, a job seeker or a client seeker, these are probably the two most important slides. If you don't retain anything else, please retain this. And really defining yourself before you do anything, before you touch your LinkedIn profile, before you update your resume, is really define your value proposition. Okay, this is so very important. You have to think about what and who potential employers are really looking for most right now. And I'll tell you this, there's three things: thinkers, hunters, and difference makers. So when you're updating your social platforms and your resume, think about what you bring to the table. And then, Holly, your slide.
So really, it's similar when you're client seeking, but there's a big difference. Instead of thinking about yourself, you want to think about what your potential clients really need most right now. What is their new normal? How has their business changed? How can you be proactive to offer value to them? It's a different viewpoint, but it's similar. What's your value proposition to your potential clients? And what we have found is most effective today and 6 months ago is really to position yourself as a trusted advisor who's going to confidently help your clients navigate their way through this new normal. One tool that I always recommend is something called a buyer persona. So, and this is something that I've been talking about for a couple of years, but it's more critical today than ever before, I think, because this forces you to really spend some time and think about your prospect or your client's world outside of just booking your hotel. And that becomes important as you try and position yourself as a valuable resource. If you don't know anything about your customers except that they like to have meetings in June, you're really at a disadvantage in this competitive landscape. And so if you don't know what a buyer persona is, I actually have a tool on my website, influencer-sales.com, buyer persona. There's a 15-minute video, and then there's also a form that you can fill out. I have a sample up here, Millie Davis Small Meeting Planner, just to give you a sense of what kinds of questions this forces you to ask about your customer. What's their larger job outside of booking your hotel? What are their goals? How are they measured? What challenges do they have? What are their change drivers and inhibitors? And where do they go to get their information? All of these are really important answers that you should know about every segment that you sell to. You don't just do one of these, unfortunately. You really want to do one of these for each segment that you sell to. And I'll tell you, I've used this time to update mine, and it's really resulted in some engaging conversations with clients because, as I said, everyone's new normal has changed. So I've gotten some really interesting updates of late. Which leads us into.
I love that buyer persona. That's pretty awesome stuff there. LinkedIn. Obviously, LinkedIn is a huge platform to connect with people, to find jobs, to find clients, and everything. This is important to make sure that we have this freshened up and use this time to also freshen up some of your other social platforms. If there's anything dated or anything, let's get it cleaned up. If it's not relevant, let's get it out of there. But we're going to talk about 3 or 4 key things to do after this call to really get you to stand out. And keep in mind that recruiters, employers, they are you going right to your LinkedIn profile and making some sort of judgment about you before they even pick up the phone and contact you. So just keep that in mind, and share this with your friends, your colleagues, your mentors, saying, hey, how do I look? And really ask for the feedback. Not say, oh, you look great and everything, but really some constructive feedback on how to improve it.
And I think this is a little bit funny because I've been teaching this topic for about 2 years. And my point is always LinkedIn originally was for job seekers. And so everyone's profile is written like a resume. But the reality is, even on the job seeker side, things have changed dramatically. However, if you're not looking for a job and you are looking for customers, there's really a different approach that you want to take to your LinkedIn profile. So we're going to show you both sides today. In getting ready for this webinar, I decided to do a little homework, and I was surprised by a couple things. Number one, well, this isn't really so surprising. Social media in general has seen about a 20% increase since people have been working from home. Not a huge surprise there. So I was curious how my own referrals from social media to my website have been shaping up, because honestly, I haven't been paying much attention lately, which is awful. So I took a glance today and I was pleasantly surprised. 730% increase in a 2-month period from my visitors from LinkedIn to my website, and on Facebook, 157% increase. So, you know, hopefully this provides a little bit of meat to what it is that we're about to share with you and some of the tips that we're about to give to you. People are on social, and what we have found specifically is a lot of decision makers end up on LinkedIn. So let's start with some tips.
Yeah, let's go to that photo, Holly, because that is what people's eyes are just drawn to. When you go into a profile, I'm going to throw myself out here on this one, and this is a profile that was done a little over 3 years ago. I'm surprised by the number of profiles within our industry, sellers, sales leaders that still have the photo of them in their car, in the driver's seat.
Why in cars?
It drives me crazy. Anything that looks, with sunglasses on, you'll see a couple people in the photo. This is really about you. So make it professional. If it's 5 years or older from the last time you posted your profile pic, let's refresh that. It's really important to show today who you are, along with all the other tips that we're going to go through. So if it's 10 or 15 years ago since you last refreshed it, let's get that done. And understand that, again, there's people that probably have been laid off. This doesn't have to be an expensive action item for you. You could go to CVS, you could go to Walgreens. If you have a newer iPhone, obviously the portrait mode, you could really do some great things to improve here.
If you have coronavirus hair, though, you might have to wait until the salon's open before you update this, or maybe just, a couple years old. There's the picture of the woman drinking wine. We are not encouraging that. We think that's best for maybe a Facebook page, not your LinkedIn profile. Though it certainly shows that you're fun, we think maybe a more professional approach might help. The website that I have up there, Snapper, it's an interesting little website that you can run your profile picture through, and it'll give you some brutal advice. It tells you interesting things like, you're pretty, but you look insincere. It tries to cite some merit before it hammers you. But it tells you if you're smiling, it thinks that there should be crinkles by your eyes, for example, to make it look more sincere. Because that, authenticness is important. So it's a great little tool. Don't live and die by it. John's point, make it relevant, make it current, is a very sound piece of advice. What do we have next?
Yeah, perfect. A couple other items to look at. Once you go beyond your photo, is that intriguing background. And we'll show you some examples in the next slide, but then also to update your title. Don't just put sales manager or director of sales and marketing, because I think you could go a little bit further. And let's kind of go to that slide next.
On the sales side, the same is true. You want to have a background photo. I think of this as free advertising space. This is your opportunity to really highlight your brand. And I refer to your title as your headline. And so that headline really should be reflecting the value or the results that you can bring for your people. As John said, why put sales manager or just your title in? Everyone's doing that. You want to stand apart. You want to send a message. And so, for example, here, Melora is the national sales manager at the Tempe, Arizona Tourism Office. Her title, her headline says, "Your Arizona Meeting Resource," very clearly stating this is what I can do for you. Lauren has a really cool job. She works at the Odyssey Aquarium here in Arizona, which is where I am, but she doesn't sell the aquarium. She sells events in the aquarium space. So her background photo I thought was perfect. It really blends the two, makes her stand out. And I like her headline, "Let me help you take your event to another level, C-level." All right, a little bit cheesy, but I love it nonetheless.
Yeah, and nothing, again, A versus B, you just want to show an opportunity. We're not picking on the A's. We just show an opportunity to really elevate your profile. All right, lastly, and we talked about this, is the about you. So your value proposition, what you can bring to the table. Your summary is going to be very important here, both as a job seeker and very similar to, a client seeker.
Again, similar to your headline, you want to have here, what results can you get for them? They are busy people. When I first started teaching this class, as I said, like 2 years ago, this was everybody's about you. They would say, it was just this big block of text, and they would say, here are my, basically my resume condensed into one giant paragraph. Today, there are a lot of better opportunities. I think this is a great example.
Yeah, Holly, I love this one. This one shows who they are, who they're working with, 20 third-party key accounts, and what this particular person is doing is driving approximately 30% of the sales revenue to the brand. Love that. It also goes into the reach and where the different properties are located, and then gets a little personal on what they're passionate about. They're passionate employed person in hospitality and travel. The empowering women piece is very key. You go into volunteer work, and then at the end, and I'm just stealing this part because, thank you for visiting my LinkedIn profile. This just shows a lot about who this person is, and why wouldn't you want to talk to this person, whether it's a job seeker or a client. This is a great summary.
It really is. I love that summary. And you can also, this is a great summary for a client seeker. In that opening line, you can really see the difference. This person, talks about what it is that she does as a leader and is very clear in terms of what her responsibilities are. This person very much talks about what they're going to do for their clients. There's really no question that this person is focused on helping their potential customers. As a client-focused, detail-oriented hospitality professional, I'm ready to help host your next event. The second paragraph talks about her product and what it can do for you. We're sure to provide an unforgettable setting for your special event. And then what I always recommend is that you end it with a very clear call to action. If you're ready to host an event like no other, please email me at your email address and your phone number. Make it as easy as possible for customers to find you and to reach out to you. Like, don't make it tricky or hard. I saw that we have a question about how useful LinkedIn really is as a helper. And I think we covered that in the beginning. Not only is it helpful because a lot of decision makers spend their time on LinkedIn, I can also tell you personally, I probably get 25% of my business through LinkedIn. It's a good chunk. It is a valuable place to do business. People go there looking for business advice, business counsel, and all of this stuff that we're talking about is free for you to do. There's no charge. And so it's really, pretty essential. as is this next piece of advice. This is a new feature that LinkedIn has added, and it's called features. You're able to post, the thing on the right shows you can feature posts, articles, links, or media right on your profile. It is real estate that you should not be ignoring. This particular example is a salesperson who created a video about her property. And so she posted a link to that. Then she posted things to do in and around her property. It's, again, helpful, valuable information for your customers. And just one other thing I forgot to mention, sorry. LinkedIn is very strong on Google. There is a strong link between the two. And so if people go and Google information, if you have it in your LinkedIn summary, you often will show up on a search on Google. I did a search for my own headline, my title, and I put it in Google, and I came up ahead of a Forbes magazine article about what my headline was. So it's incredibly helpful. Anything on this, John, that you want to add?
No, I think I'll just add one thing about resumes. You see a lot of people posting resumes here in your LinkedIn profile, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I will share that I still think that you could be selective in who gets your resume and where it's posted. I think it's a privilege for somebody to see my resume. And not just let it out there for everybody to see. So keep that in mind. Again, this is not anything that's going to hurt you, but again, just a suggestion on how you represent. I don't think everybody should have access to your resume, kind of like your social security number and stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating information. I would have assumed that you put your resume out there, but after we had this conversation, I thought very interesting points.
Yeah, still be selective, and I know it's hard. So when you start to list your experience, so we've got your background, you've got your photo, you've got your title all buttoned up, then really go through your experience. And I think it's important not just to list, okay, you were, like I was at the Hyatt Regency Chicago for this date, but what did you do there? What markets were you managing? What were some of the things that you were able to accomplish there? Not a job description, but a couple key points there. Because that's what people look for. People are like, okay, is this person's, for the people on the call here today, do you manage the DC market? And what were some of the successes that you had within that time with that current employer? List certifications. These are, obviously becoming more and more important. Share your volunteer work. We're going to talk about that in this presentation. If you don't have any volunteer experience to share, now is a great time to start building that. And then ask for recommendations at a professional level and above where you are. I know that this is maybe a little bit uncomfortable for some people to say, hey, can you recommend me? And you're not sure what they're recommending, but you're asking somebody to say something nice about you for others to see. Again, go above where, a previous supervisor, it's like a reference, right? So keep those four things in mind as you continue to go down and freshen up your profile.
And if I could just interject from a client-seeking side, all of these absolutely hold true, except for the ask for recommendations. You might also want to consider asking some of your best clients to write you a recommendation. It's really helpful to have their, testimonials basically on your LinkedIn profile. Who wouldn't want that? And just as a tip, sometimes I think maybe I'm a control freak, but if I ask someone for, and I am, all right, a little bit. If I ask someone for a recommendation, I have found it makes it easier for them if I give them some sense of what I'm looking for. If you agree with this, can you highlight this, or this? And it, believe it or not, it really does take the pressure off of the person writing you the recommendation, because people are sometimes a little bit uncomfortable writing. And so it really helps them out. Plus, if you're a control freak, it makes you feel better.
Yeah. Updating the resume. Okay, we're here, right? You guys are probably like, okay, when are we going to talk about the resume? This is simple. Let's get this and keep it simple here, by the way, because to be honest with you, while it is my job to go through your resume, employers are not spending a lot of time reading resumes. You could imagine before this all happened, they were inundated with a lot of applications, but more and more, they're not spending a lot of time. But keep it easy to read, bullet points, successes, what you were able to bring to the table with that, with each employer. That's what they're looking for. Take out the objective piece, put in the summary of what, all your value proposition, right? What we talked about. So that's what I want you to focus on. It doesn't need to be, 3 and 4 pages. It would be a waste of time. If you could keep it to 1 page, I know some of our veterans maybe on this call are like, oh my gosh, that's so hard. I get it. 2 pages max. But make sure you're not putting any fluff in there. It's to the point, and to get that particular employer to pick up the phone and call you.
This is a summary for a resume and or an about me for LinkedIn that we thought was a great example. In the opening paragraph, it really just kind of summarizes what you've done. And then there are bullet points of the specific skill set that you have. So we just thought this might be helpful. And also these slides are going to be available for you to read through these, because some of the samples I think can be helpful when you're updating your own.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so let's get back to, sorry, Holly. Let's get back to Menti.com. So, it's been a few weeks now, and I know for some of us it's been a long few weeks. But what have we done since COVID-19? What have we updated? There's 5 examples. Connect on every single one if you have done something in that space. So let's just take a few minutes and see how many people have used their time wisely here.
I love to see certification.
Yeah.
Well, of course, I'm dying to know what the hobbies are. Can you put in the chat box, if you're willing, what your new hobbies are? I'm so curious about that.
Yeah.
You don't have to, but that would be cool if you did. These are great. John, I'm imagining, I know that I would be asking people, what did you do during the COVID-19 pause? How did you spend your time? I think that speaks volumes about kind of who you are. Did you binge watch Tiger King? That's okay. But did you also take up a new hobby, get your certification? I'd love also to know what certifications you got. Hopefully everybody got their CHDM.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely going to be a very common interview question, whether it's from a recruiter or whether it's from an employer, because I think this is just something that everybody had an opportunity to work on something on themselves during this time.
All right. I wanted to talk briefly about growing your contacts. When I talk to hoteliers, I look at salespeople. When I'm teaching this, I look at their contact list, and it's often a lot of other hotel salespeople, which is great, but you really want to start expanding it, and you want to start expanding it on a weekly basis. Don't let this, the more people in your network, the more exposure you're going to get, you're going to be relevant, you're going to be out there a little bit more. And so you really want to focus on growing your contacts and growing them in the right way. And so, John, do you want to speak to, on the job seeker side, who you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about finding out who the hiring manager is. And sometimes it's difficult because if it's a DMO, it could be a committee. But there's always some person that's going to go ahead and start it. But a couple things to look for are HR directors. If you're a hotelier at the property level and you're applying for something, that's one way to connect. But go above where you're at. So if you're a director of sales and marketing, go to the VP level. I mentioned here Chief People Officer and VP of Talent. Don't just go and apply for something, you have to go above and beyond, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be working towards one opportunity, as you can imagine. So those are just some tips of some titles to go ahead and connect with. And we're going to go a little bit further as to how your connection can stand out a little bit more.
And on the client seeker side, again, I just make this part of my weekly to-do list. My goal is really 5 quality people a week. If you've not focused on this at all, start with filling up your contact list with your past clients first. Invite everyone that you talk to or that you meet to connect with you on LinkedIn the day that you meet them. Look through your sister hotel salespeople contacts. Is there anyone that they should introduce you to? And again, I just add it as a recurring task every week.
Yeah, so now I want to talk to you about that communication as you're reaching out to these new contacts here. Is, a few years ago, LinkedIn had this add note button. When I think LinkedIn came out, we were all very happy, like, oh, want to connect and accept and, all this stuff. But now is the time to really kind of build that quality of connections. And when you add that note, go ahead and be specific as to why you're connecting with them. For example, I use it as, hey, Holly, I have this opportunity and I came across your profile that I was really impressed by. I want to talk to you about an opportunity that I'm working on, or perhaps other future opportunities. It's quick. And same thing on the client side, but be clear. Now, the other thing is follow up. If you're sending a note, a lot of people miss this. And so you'll see in your activities on LinkedIn that somebody's accepted. If you send them a note, you may have to go back and say, hey, Holly, I sent you an important note and thank you for the connection. But I would like to connect with you on the phone. And of course, thank them. Be appreciative of all the connections that you have. They could lead into something that is both beneficial for them and for you at some point.
On the client side, same thing applies. Be personal in this note when you can. Certainly say thank you and follow up. Don't let sometimes you get overwhelmed having to write them a note, like what am I going to write? And so you don't, and then you don't connect. To make it easy for you, I've provided something here that is really pretty simple and very effective at getting good connection rates. You simply say, I came across your profile and thought we both might benefit from being connected. That's it. I have found this to be as effective as almost anything. I will say, once you grow your list and you want to start being a little bit more selective about who you want on your list, you can begin to be a little bit more qualifying in your note. As an example, today, I will typically send a note to somebody and say, hey, I teach a digital sales and marketing training class. I put out some content. If you'd like to see it from time to time, let's connect. I'm letting them know that I'm going to share content. What I have found is my connection rate has gone down a very little bit, but the quality of my connections, these are people that actually want to see my stuff. So they're really sort of handy connections. One other really important thing, LinkedIn and most social media platforms, what we're sharing with you here works really pretty effectively on most. They have groups. They have groups that cover every single interest in the whole entire world. And so we highly recommend that you join these groups and that you engage in these groups. And I will give you some tips on how influencers, we refer to them as influencers, but client seekers, how they do groups. First of all, no more than 2 or 3 join initially. If you go out there and join 27 groups, you're not going to engage with them. So very carefully pick 2 or 3. And the same rule applies. If you're in hotel sales, don't join hotel sales groups only. Join groups where your customers are. And that's really easy to find out. Click on your customer profiles, scroll down, look at their interests, and you'll see the groups that they belong to, where they go to get information. Join those groups. And don't log on to a group and immediately start selling your product. I relate it to an obnoxious person who walks into a party and before he gets a read of the room, is all of a sudden raucous and loud and everybody, don't be that person. Go into a group, start to observe it, find out the feel of the group, find out if it's an active group. If it's not an active group, maybe find another group that is more active, but go in, listen, And then before you post anything, just start commenting and try to comment always with kindness, but also with thoughtful, relevant comments. Hey, thanks for sharing that article. I read it. It was really good. People really like that. And then they like you. And then they feel more compelled to comment on your comments. They will remember you. It does help you stand out. Finally, start adding content. And again, of value, relevant, thoughtful content. And you can add it on your groups, but you can also add it, very importantly, on your own news feed. And it's more helpful if you have a lot of contacts in your network. You're going to be exposed to more people. I did a little bit of research on what was trending right now on LinkedIn. Not a big surprise. Work from home articles. You can see the increase of engagement in North America, 165% of content that was posted about tips from working from home. And lo and behold, look what I found, an article from our very own Ellen Wilson. A very valuable article that I wish I would have read 5 years ago when I first started working from home. If you haven't seen it yet, you should really check it out, but it's a really helpful piece of content. The other current trending content information you should know about LinkedIn is they're looking for a human voice, right, in an authentic tone, not like a brand, like a person. And there's most engagement when you're talking about helping others. So bear that in mind as you do some posts. I have some samples here, very upbeat, very positive. Our industry will be back and better than ever. Debbie Harmon, I love this. Somebody posted a picture and Debbie Harmon wrote, "The view from my front desk. I can't wait to welcome our employees and guests back." I thought that was a good one. From my own personal arsenal here, this is one of my favorites and most successful posts. Everybody is on Zoom. And so I found this great Zoom background. It's the Brady Bunch. So I posted it and said, it won't let me post a video, but if you email me, I'll send you the video of the Brady Bunch. And literally, I got about 40 requests of people, oh my gosh, send me this thing. It was very helpful. The one to the right is Marlies Ricker, who's a fantastic salesperson. She made a video talking about what their hotel was doing to prepare for guests coming back. So that's very helpful. Z is a good friend of mine who really posts positive, upbeat things all the time. But this time he actually did an @ and then the person's name, which is how you get the blue to show up. And that notifies those people that someone's posted about you. Very effective. When he did that, he got a ton more engagement. And just FYI, this is true on all of the social channels. The more you get comments, the more that social algorithm shows you to more people. It helps your presence. It's similar to the Google algorithms, but on the social side, I do a lot of research in this world, and they're trying to create addiction, these social algorithms. They want you to click just a little bit longer, and they have found that posts that get a lot of engagement, meaning comments, are popular, and so they show those first to people. And so when you're writing your post, just sort of think about that. Ask a question, ask people what they think. So just a little tip there. The last thing that I love is a lot of people have been taking this time to get certifications and they're posting their degrees. That's a great way to be communicating to people, hey, I'm not just hanging out doing nothing. I am actually being very helpful. So I thought that was a good example. Anything to add on that, John?
Well, I think it's great that, all these people that have been posting stuff have been impacted in some way or form. Yet they're not using this time to be quiet. They're still setting the alarm every day, getting up, putting their shoes on, right? And really sharing some motivational and educational content to the right audience.
Fantastic.
All right, so I'm going to go through these next few slides. I'm going to try not to fly too fast, but I do want to leave some time for questions as we kind of, run towards the end of this presentation. But, this is a very stressful time, and some times that some of us are going through for the very first time. So a couple things here is really kind of focus on your family, focus on yourself during this time. It's going to be very important to get you through this. Focus on the mind and body. One of the things, I didn't put it in my new hobby, but one of the things that I'm doing to help control stress is do some meditation. 10 minutes every morning starts my day, kind of gets me clear. If you run into any roadblocks mentally, it's a good place to really take a deep breath. And again, connect with others during this time. See how people are doing, and don't be quiet. Virtual interviews. We've seen this trend happen before the virus, but more and more, this is going to be the new norm. Okay, so remove those technical difficulties. It's okay, Holly. We're good.
I get the technical difficulties. I was just trying to prove a point.
Yes, exactly. So, make sure you have a good background, and make sure that you're dressing appropriately for these. And be prepared. And I know that this is hard for some people, but really have your personality come out through these Zoom interviews or Skype or what have you, FaceTime. This is an opportunity for you to make an impression. You've got to be ready for this, because this is going to be common in all the rehires and all the job interviews that you're going to have to go through. Okay. Focus on skill building at this time. This is a great time to build yourself and to come out a better you at the end of this. And leading and attending webinars. So Holly, we both get a star here today for leading a webinar, and everybody on this call, you get a star for attending. So thank you, but good job as well. There's a lot of free digital courses out there for you to you learn new things, and then earn a certification, as Holly shared, the FAU Hospitality Management Certification. That question, what have you done since you've been laid off or furloughed or impacted with this virus? And you could say, well, I've done this. HSMAI has a great library of certifications that you could go after, including the digital marketing certification that Holly teaches a class on. So now's the time. You don't want to get back to whatever that new normal looks like and say, oh, I wish I would have done this, this, and this. So keep that in mind.
And you also, again, want to publicize that you're doing these things. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable, and don't necessarily think that you have to do it in an obnoxious way. Sure. But just letting people know, I just attended a really interesting webinar on X and why it was interesting, or one thing you learned from it. I wouldn't be negative. If you went to a webinar and it was awful, I wouldn't say, don't waste your time on this. That might be helpful. I might reserve that for a personal message. It makes you come across as a little bit negative, obviously. But anytime you can say something positive. In truth, though, if it was a bad webinar, don't promote it. Because again, this is your brand out on LinkedIn. And if you're promoting a bad webinar, somebody's going to take it and say, that is not a valuable piece of, that's not a valuable person. So be authentic, be sort of like your mother used to say, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. But if you can come up with anything nice to say, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, very true. Very true. All right, you could show this entire slide here, Holly. This is, keep connecting with everybody. Again, let's not be quiet here. Connect and reconnect with mentors. This is a great time. Your mentor, he or she probably has some really good advice for you, and may have been laid off or furloughed or impacted through something that was out of their control. So now's the time to reconnect with them, and surround yourself with quality people. That's something that I've always done throughout my career, and my friends and family and everything. So if you have people that are just continue to talk about the Tiger King, and those happy hours are getting earlier and earlier, and they're not setting that alarm, Monday through Friday, then time to shift your focus a little bit and express gratitude during this time for, again, all those connections and all those conversations that you're having. And if you're not humble already, now's a great time to become humble. Okay.
I love that. Fantastic advice, John.
Thank you. And again, we have that volunteer section that people are like, oh gosh, I'm not volunteering anything. Don't get nervous. This is an opportunity to put your good people skills to use. As some states start to come out, there's a lot of remote opportunities that you could do to help give back and do those random acts of kindness. This will help you. This will help your heart. This will help your stress level, and just start thinking about what you could be doing. Lastly, we've put together a lot of resources available for everybody. And if you just go to our website, searchlightglobal.com/COVID, you're going to find a lot of free resources, a lot of stuff that we've shown here today. You'll also get a copy of this presentation, but it's just some good stuff for you to go and access, some industry insights from all the major players. So take a look at that. Holly?
It really is a fabulous resource. I refer to it and send people to it all the time. I actually am very involved with the HSMAI Arizona chapter, and I put a link to it on our Arizona website because it's just a really good resource. You guys did a fantastic job. I personally did not do a resource page on my website, but I did write a blog post that salespeople have told me has been really helpful for them. So there's the information. I also decided to offer half off my boot camp that starts, it's sales training that starts the 18th of May. But in addition, I have been compelled, a couple of people have insisted upon it, that I give away a handful of scholarships, so free training, and giving away 5 of them. Just shoot me an email, tell me what's going on with you, and likely you'll get in. I'm not really that rigid. It starts May the 18th. It lasts for a month. It's a mix of e-learning and then live workshops. Obviously, I highly recommend it. And that really brings us to the end of the information. I saw that somebody had a question on where the analysis for engagement came. I think you're probably talking about that report that I showed with the 730% increase. That was actually Google Analytics that analyzes your website. And so it's not from LinkedIn, it's actually from a different tool, Google Analytics. Also free, but you have to set your website up on it. But I wanted to get that question in there.
And just to pay you back, Holly, for the nice compliment that you gave our resource page, when we did this presentation and Holly was talking about her boot camp, for the Arizona chapter last week, the chat box just filled up with comments on how awesome this is. So definitely take a look at it and take advantage of it.
Oh, they want to know where I got the LinkedIn data about the posts that are getting the most information from an article that I will put the source in. I would have to flip the side, but I'll put the source on the actual article before I send out the slides, so you'll be able to see where I got that information. Any other questions for anybody here? We're on the Q&A part. It's so funny, as we were going through this, I really saw the similarities between job hunters and client seekers, but really there are a couple of differences. It's really sort of important, I think, for you to differentiate between the two.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no questions, I think that is a wrap.
All right, and I don't see any more questions either. So Holly and John, thank you so very much. Your presentation includes some extremely useful tips on how to maximize our LinkedIn presence and opportunities. And thank you all for joining our webinar today. We hope you were able to gain some useful takeaways. And just a reminder, you will receive a link to today's recording. On behalf of Ellen Wilson, Managing Director, and our entire advisory board staff, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. We will have another webinar, and it's going to be on Tuesday, May 12th at 12 noon, as Bob Anderson, Principal of Star Performance, will help us find success in the middle of the chaos. And lastly, I encourage everyone to follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn, and also check out our website at hsmaidc.org. This now ends our webinar. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.